Constant releases of new collections, easy access to the latest trends and next day delivery, all of this is contributing to the world's largest threat, extinction. Let's start at the beginning. What is fast fashion? Fast fashion can be defined as inexpensive clothing produced rapidly by mass market retailers in response to the latest trends. This new world of the latest trends at cheap costs, all accessible with a few taps of a finger, has led to customers buying more clothes than ever before, which has unimaginable impacts on our planet and its environment. Environmental impacts include pollution produced in manufacturing, the transport of goods overseas, the washing and drying process, all the way through to the disposal of products. The average person today is buying 60% more items of clothing than they were 15 years ago, but are only keeping them half as long. This problem is called overconsumption, which has led to the production of clothing doubling between 2000 and 2014. The fashion industry is the second largest polluter in the world, behind only oil. Can you believe that? I didn't. To understand this problem further, I talked to Natalia Moreira, a postdoctoral researcher based in Finland, who has studied fashion and sustainability for over 15 years.
Hi, so my name is Natalia. I come from a fashion background, so I did my undergrad in fashion, and then I did my master's in Italy, and I did on development of sustainable products.
I wanted to fully understand how fast fashion even began and how it's taken over to become the culture it is today.
So fast fashion came for a purpose that was, let's provide clothing and let's make sure that everybody can get dressed in a decent way. That created this space for you to have cheaper and cheaper products, and the more, the merrier, and then people start buying and they don't care about what they bought or how many times they're using. Nobody stops to think of where it came from or where it's going to go.
What I was starting to learn was that we live in a make, take, waste world where we don't consider the consequences of a seemingly innocent industry. It shocked me because I'm no stranger to shopping. For over 20 years, I enjoyed shopping trips, buying new clothes, keeping up with the latest trends. I would go shopping to find the nicest clothes for the cheapest prices so that I had money left over to buy more. So one of the first questions I had when learning about this issue was, why didn't I know? All I ever saw on the high street, online, and in emails I received from my favourite shops was pretty pictures of the newest trends with small price tags attached. Who wouldn't be interested? None of the companies that I was regularly buying from were telling me how many gallons of water I needed to make my new pair of jeans, or how much CO2 was emitted into the atmosphere to make my new t-shirt. But realistically, why would they? When they know that the numbers are so shocking that if their customers did know the truth, that everything would be forced to change in their hugely profitable industry. For example, the fashion industry is responsible for 20% of all global wastewater. Did you also know that it takes 2,000 gallons of water to make just one pair of jeans? And did you know that this amount of water is enough to sustain one person for 12 years? I wanted to know if there was a way in which that I could still enjoy fashion but at a lower cost to our natural environment. To help me, I discovered some wonderful sustainable fashion companies who I spoke with to try and learn what I could do to help. The first woman I spoke to is the CEO and COO of Blue Salt, which is a sustainable fashion brand based in Malibu, who explained to me why what she does at Blue Salt is sustainable and the option of choosing brands that provide fashion with the environment in mind.
So let me introduce myself. My name is Lyndie Benson. I'm the founder, CEO, and CCO of Blue Salt. Blue Salt is sustainable because, the no waste and the idea of how you create your wardrobe with the basics and you don't consume and consume and consume. That's one way. The other way is the mere material of everything is made from the same material, which is from the beech tree. The beech trees propagate by themselves, so they don't have to be planted. So these forests regenerate on their own. So that's one thing. And then the factory that makes the fibers, which are called the softest fibers on earth, that are from wood, believe it or not, they're from trees. They do the process of that sustainably as possible. And it's a company called Tencel.
Tencel creates fabric from the wood of beech trees, which gets turned into pulp, then fibre, and then into yarn before it's the fabric that they sell.
It's sustainable from the start.
After speaking with Lyndie, I talked to the founder of Studio Zip Code, which is a slow fashion, sustainable shop based in Bournemouth, who is also helping to provide clothes in a sustainable way.
I'm Emily Coleman and I am the founder of Studio Zip Code. So the first thing that makes us sustainable is using only sustainable materials. So we only use organic, dead stock and recycled fabrics, primarily organic. A lot of waste is not thrown away, it's instead upcycled, recycled, reused. Everything is made here. So there's less air miles, so we're not like having a factory in China, which the fabrics have to be sent there, and then that has to be sent to the customer in the UK. Like that's a huge amount of air miles that are like completely unnecessary. I dye everything, so we buy everything that's white, apart from the like printed stuff. We buy white organic cotton, and then I dye everything here. I use reactive dyes, which are better for the environment.
Talking to both Emily and Lyndie helped me to realise that there are options out there to shop sustainably, but it also made me think about the concept of overconsumption. Even if I were to swap fast fashion brands for sustainable companies, would I still be buying more than I need? I needed to find out if there were any additional ways to tame my overconsumption. I discovered an environmental initiative named Swap It Up and spoke to one of their volunteers.
My name is Selina Trabuco. I'm a volunteer for Swap It Up, which is an environmental initiative that educates young people across the UK on fast fashion and beyond. Swap It Up was created because, as a generation, we were tired of feeling like we couldn't make massive impact in the fight against climate change. So we go to schools and we speak to them about Swap It Up, and we promote the use of secondhand clothing. It was climate action made by teens for teens. So we launched a volunteers program, what we call a creators program, whereby students, secondary students across the UK could come together virtually and create eco-content. So they can learn more about the implications of fast fashion, how to prevent it, and how to raise awareness around it. And I think it starts with educating people into taking little steps in their daily lives to make lasting impacts.
Educating young people on the effects of fast fashion is probably one of the best ways to fight this issue. If I'd been taught about how much of an impact my shopping habits could have on the environment, I would have changed a long time ago.
Essentially, the youth of today, it's the future of tomorrow. So we need to teach the youth something that past generations were reluctant to accept, which is that our planet is dying. And if we want to save it, we'll need to save it to live in here.
We only have one planet. This one planet is already really overloaded and struggling to survive. So if we don't change, we are the ones that are going to suffer. If the threat of death is not enough, I don't know what is.
This truly shocked me. We as humans are killing the planet we live on, endangering our own existence. I would like to believe that the reason fast fashion was able to become the deadly culture it is today is the fact that people don't know about the issues. Companies aren't bringing awareness to the problems fast fashion is creating, but instead profiting off the destruction of our planet.
I think most people want to do good, but maybe they just don't know how. I think that's something that comes from each individual and what they want, their world to be and how they want to contribute.
But can the blame be put on either side, consumer or company?
I think companies need to stop greenwashing.
Greenwashing is when companies present an environmentally responsible public image but the information is misleading or untrue.
They know it's not going to happen. Their business model is literally founded on consumption. They know that their whole system is built on consumerism. And even if they do switch to entirely sustainable materials, those sustainable materials are just going to end up in landfill. People are still over-consuming and still throwing away. Primarily, the only realistic way for things to change is from consumers. Because it is the second biggest polluter, the fashion industry, and something needs to be done about that, and it seems to be kind of not being mentioned.
who is responsible? I think everybody has to do a little bit. So I think like we need to share a little bit the guilt, the blame.
Well, I mean, the fashion industry has to have that available in order for, you know, anything to really shift. I think people want it. There has to be supply and demand for anything to happen, you know, for anybody to buy anything, you know. There has to be the want to buy it, which I think there is, and obviously. And I think that's coming from the consumer and ending up that the pressure is put on.
I think the solution lies on both parties. I think, yes, fast fashion industries, especially big companies, they need to address these issues and realize that they're also a part of the problem as well as consumers are. And so they need to find alternatives into the way they produce their clothing, but also they need to increase their wages for the workers, because it's not fair on them, and it's also not fair on consumers to not know where their clothes and items are coming from. So I think there needs to be more transparency in the fashion industry, but also consumers need to find alternatives if the fashion industry is not willing to do so.
The resolution to this problem needs to be shared. Companies shouldn't be promoting, encouraging and profiting off overconsumption, because that is the heart of the issue. They are aware of the damage that they are doing to the environment. However, us as consumers aren't. But we can help.
So consumers can push, can pull in a way. So you say, I'm not going to buy anything that is not fairly done. There you go. They stop. The companies are going to stop doing it that way and change, because they survive on the consumer. The consumer is almighty.
Well, you guys are the ones that are going to be buying things because you're going to be super successful and you're going to have tons of money to buy whatever you want. And then you can, you know, put the pressure on and say, we're not going to buy anything like, you know, that's made by children or that is bad for the environment or, you know, whatever you feel, because you're the boss. You're going to be the boss of that.
By putting the pressure on fast fashion brands and going to sustainable alternatives for our clothing needs, we can force big companies to change the way they produce their clothes, or else they won't have our money or our business.
You have options. Buy what you need because you need it and love your stuff. You need to start somewhere and you need to do something. Even if it means like saving up to buy something better.
People message me sometimes like, I really want to buy this, like, is it going to be around in like 2 months' time, because I'm saving up for it? I'm like, you go, yeah, of course it'll be around, I keep it around for you. Spend a little more and buy a little less, I think, is the thing that people need to like understand.
There's a little something called cost per wear, which should be considered when buying any item of clothing. It means if you buy a sustainable £200 coat that you love and you're going to wear it for the next 4 years every winter, and if you divide this total cost by how many times you're going to be wearing it, it can work out as cheap as 30p per wear. But if you buy a cheap £30 coat from a fast fashion brand and you only manage to wear it 10 times before the quality of it starts to break, that can end up costing you £3 per wear, which actually works out that the more expensive coat is the cheaper option. Doubling the amount of times an item of clothing is worn can halve the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that the fashion industry produces. If we are going to survive on planet Earth for any lengthy period of time, we're going to have to change the way in which we shop. Right now, it's not sustainable. Overconsumption and overproduction can never be sustainable. The way to save the world with fashion is by making the right decision when it comes to how and where we shop. By swapping clothes with friends, you could get a whole new wardrobe for free, whilst getting rid of the clothes that you no longer like. Second-hand shops, websites or apps provide a means to the selling of unwanted clothing. And when you do buy new, by purchasing items you know you're going to love for a long time, you can save yourself a lot of money. And finally, choosing to buy from companies who are transparent in their production process and use only sustainable materials can save the environment. And it really needs your help. The future of fashion is in our hands.